So hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to replace your leaking tappet cover gasket, also known as your push rod cover gasket, on a 5.9 Cummins. In this video it is a 12 valve, but it is basically the same procedure between a VP44 truck 12 valve and also a common rail. So you first take the intake horn off, take the fuel lines off, and then you'll have to take the injection pump off. And that's where we start off here, is taking the injection pump off. So to pull the injection pump, you're going to take off your filler net cap, and then the pump bolt itself is a 30 millimeter. So you just want to get that on there, give it a snap a couple of times, and it'll come right off. And then unthread it by hand. Be careful. You gotta be careful with this lock washer, because if you drop that in the timing cover, you're pulling the pan off to get it out. So that washer right there. So we got our washer and our nut. Now for popping off the injection pump gear, I have the timing set so you can time the P-pumps, and it comes with this pump puller, or pump gear puller. All it is really is a block of steel with two holes on the outside, and then this nut or this bolt threads into the middle. So this goes against the pump shaft. These two holes line up with two holes in the gear like that, and then you tighten it down and it pops it off. So you can see in the timing cover, here is your pump shaft, this is the timing gear, and there's two threaded holes on either side of the pump shaft. So what you do is take the one bolt, it will thread into here like so. Take the other one, it'll thread into the other side right like that. You tighten them down so they're tight enough that the bolt will be able to reach the pump shaft. You have to tighten them down evenly, or else you're going to pull sideways on the gear and possibly kink it and just make it harder to come off. So those are tightened down, and we have this snugged up to the shaft, and then you basically just take a wrench and tighten this bolt up. There's no keyway in a P-pump. It is all just interference fit, and that pops off right like that. You see the gear is loose in there, so now you can take your puller off. So now that the gear is loose and popped off of the pump shaft, we can start taking the mounting bolts off of the pump and pulling it off. Now since we have the head off and everything, I'm going to be timing this pump, probably bumping the timing up to about 16 degrees. So it doesn't really matter where the pump and everything is. We can set the engine back to top dead center and then just adjust where the pump is. But if you're taking it off a stock truck and you want to put it back on how it is, you have to pin time the pump. So now we have to take the throttle linkage off the side of the pump. And to do that, there's just the throttle bar right here, throttle lever. These are just ball joints, so you can just pop them off. And then this bar will just dangle. And then the throttle bracket, you have 3 bolts, one here, one here, one here. Those are 10 mil, and then that whole thing will pop off. Throttle linkage is off. So once you have the throttle linkage off, there's also this fuel line right here. There's a 10 mil bolt there. This one, the whole bracket came off. That's fine. There's also this oil feed line on the side of the pump. Now, if you have the head off, you can get at this side, this end, a lot easier than the bottom. But if you don't have the head off, then where you want to take it off is down there. That fitting right there, that goes up into the back of the pump. And then to actually pull the pump off, there's 4 mounting bolts. So there's one here, or nuts. There's one here, one here, one here, and then one down in there. There's also 2 10mm bolts, so one here and one there that go down into a mounting bracket. I don't know if you can see it down in there, but it goes into a bracket that is down underneath the pump. So let's get those off, and then the pump will just pop right out. So once you have all the mounting bolts off, you can usually take a pry bar, put it between the pump and the timing cover, and just give it a little pry and it'll pop right out. Once you get it moving, because all there is in here is like a big O-ring. Once you get it moving, you should be able to just wiggle the whole thing out. No problem. Just hitting a piece of noise isolator that was broke off down in behind the pump. So once you have the pump off, you take that oil line off the rest of the way. And then I took this piece of bracket right here that the bottom of the pump mounts to. I took it right off. I don't think you have to, but it does give you a lot more room. And then I took the fuel line off that goes onto the fuel heater there, and the fuel line that goes on to the top of the pump there to feed the fuel filter. And then yeah, there's just a bolt there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you get those 6 10mm out of there, and then that side tappet gasket, or the side tappet cover, will pop right off. So there we go, we got our tappet cover off, and as you can see, this gasket is just old and cracked up and leaking. So we'll get that off, clean up the mounting surface, and get this put back together. So we got our tappet cover regasketed, all cleaned up, sealed up nice. Now we got to put the pump back on. So first thing you want to do to mount your pump is clean up your mating surface on the flange. You want to take some brake clean and a clean towel and clean up the inside of the flange, because that's where the O-ring on the end of the pump sits. That O-ring should be replaced when you're pulling your pump and stuff off. It may look fine, but if it's never been off before, it's probably got flat, it's probably old, could be the same deal as a tappet cover gasket and cracked and could leak in the future. Then you want to put your oil feed line in that goes back behind the pump, and then tighten up the bottom. Then you want to take your pump, slide it in, and then start the nuts on the studs that are sticking through the pump. So you want to slide that in, tighten up those nuts. I go in an X pattern just to make sure it's going in smoothly and evenly. And then you want to put your bracket back under the pump. The hole in the bracket that holds it is pretty big compared to the bolt, so it'll move around quite a bit. So you just install that loosely, put your fuel feed line that runs back behind the injection pump, put that in, because one of those mounting bolts goes through a bracket on that fuel line. And then put those 2 mounting bolts in, tighten them up, and then tighten the 10mm that holds that bracket. And then you can time the pump. So you don't want your pump nut super tight, you just need it tight enough so that the pump will rotate with the engine. So now to find the timing pin on the pump, come over to the side and there's a plug right here. I think it's a 1-inch plug. So you pull this out and you will see this little guy sitting in there. Wash it off with brake clean, but you can see there's a slot in the end of it. And if you look in here, while you're rotating the engine over, you will see a tab going around. So you want to rotate your engine clockwise, and if you look in that little hole, eventually you will see a tab come around. Now that tab is the timing tab. So when you see that tab, what you want to do is you want to take your pin that you pulled out, turn it so the slot is facing the tab, and that tab will ride in the slot, and that's pin timing the pump. So way to make sure you have it actually on there is you can just take a set of pliers. You try to like wiggle it back and forth, like twist it. If it won't twist, then you know you have it on the tab. So once you have the pump pin timed, you want to crack the nut off of the injection pump again. That's why you don't tighten it down too tight, because you're going to have to take it off again. Install your gear removal tool again. Pop the nut off, or pop the gear off. It's not going to take much because we didn't actually torque it on there. We just had it tight enough to turn the pump over. Then you want to go to your timing pin, or your timing plug hole. I take my finger and stick it in there, and then rotate the engine clockwise slowly until I just feel the hump or the dimple coming around. And then once you feel the dimple coming around just on the edge of your finger, take the plug, put it in, hold inward pressure on it, and then slowly rotate the cam over, or the engine over. And then there. So now we have the engine pin timed at stock timing. So it was 12 degrees, I think. 14 degrees. So if you wanted to keep it stock, all you do is you pull the plug, out of the injection pump, pop that out, put the cap back in, tighten down the injection pump nut to, I believe it's 155 foot-pounds. Pull your timing plug out, put your O-ring back on, put it in, and then you're ready to go. So once you have your pump timed again, you can put your injection lines back on, you can put your intake horn back on, the rest of your fuel system, if you had to take any of that off, most likely you took the fuel filter off, the housing that holds that, so you put that back together, prime the fuel system, fire it up, and away you go. Thanks for watching, hope to see you on the next video, and don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube. Thank you, and have yourself a good day.